All right, welcome back to Inside College Basketball Now with Jon Rothstein. Pleased to be joined by St. John's head coach Rick Pitino. Coach, when was the first time you went to Saratoga?
It was Jim Boeheim's assistant coach in 1976, I think it was, his first year. And I went to Saratoga at that time.
And the perception of Saratoga since that time has went through the roof. It is a big time spot in the summer months for everybody who loves the racetrack. And perception is an interesting thing because you have completely changed the perception of St. John's basketball. I'm curious, when you were at Louisville and your program was at its apex and you were in the league with St. John's, what was your perception then of St. John's program?
Well, obviously, I competed against the great Lou Conaseca. St. John's had it rolling in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, a little bit in the 90s. And then for 25 years, they fell off the map. I can't go in, I can't pinpoint exactly why, but one of the reasons, St. John's back in the day, they had no dormitories.
Right.
So they could pay an exorbitant amount of money to the players to go live off campus because housing in New York's very expensive. So the kids would stay at home. Once they built dormitories, that stipend was out.
Right.
And I believe kids started going away to the ACC schools and other places as well.
So how did you change the perception of St. John's to what it is today after just 2 seasons?
Well, one factor, I think the NIL really helped St. John's,
Sure.
where certain coaches were against the NIL. I was not. I think for St. John's, the NIL is a blessing because now it's just we're treated like the New York Knicks. We're a
Yeah.
professional team. We pay our athletes. We play at Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. So we're exactly a pro team. We're not the Knicks, but we're a pro team in New York representing St. John's University.
And 2 years ago when you got the job, people you told me would come up to you on the street and say, I want you to lead us back to relevance. I want to get back to the tournament. And now 2 years later, people are coming up to you and talking about going to a Final Four. What is it like to have that type of a 180?
Well, it's amazing just what I have an apartment in New York since becoming the head coach of the New York Knicks.
Yep.
Kept it for all those years, over 30 years. And when I walk the streets today, I get people yelling, "Go Johnnies." People very, very excited about the team. We're selling out Madison Square Garden. I didn't expect it to happen this quick, but I'm very grateful it did. And very excited to see the future of St. John's and what we can accomplish this season.
I know that every coach wants their season to end in the Final Four to have a chance to win a national title, but considering how barren this program was in terms of overall success for 25 years, how gratifying was last season for you?
It was great because winning the regular season and winning the conference tournament, winning 35 games, obviously we fell a little short of our goals with the NCAA, but Arkansas that night was better. And I've been on both ends of the spectrum with uh, being lucky enough to play in 7 Final Fours. Some nights you get an opponent that falls in your favor, and other nights like Arkansas. And one year we lost to Morehead State at the buzzer on a 3-point shot. It just happens. You never know how the matchups are going to when they announce that field of 68. You never know how the matchups are going to make out for you. But overall, it was a great experience. Great that we got in the tournament. Let's hope this year we go a little bit further.
How does the challenge now of continuing to amplify the program compare to the challenge of initially building it a couple of years ago?
Well, one of the interesting things that we did this year, and I told my staff, I said, let's play the best schedule in St. John's history. Let's take on every great opponent we can get. So we're playing in Las Vegas, where we open up, I think, with Iowa State. Then we play Baylor, potentially, depending on how many points you win by, depending on your defense. You could play Houston. Then on December 20th, we're playing Kentucky in Atlanta in the CBS doubleheader. We're playing Ole Miss in the Garden. And second game of the season, we're playing Alabama at Madison Square Garden. So we are very excited to play that type of schedule. And I want to know right on after we play Quinnipiac in the opening game, we play Alabama. I want to know exactly where we are at that point. Are we ready for the Big East? Are we ready for a big time basketball? And that remains to be seen.
Now, you referenced it. There are 3 SEC teams on the schedule for St. John's: Alabama, Kentucky, and Ole Miss. How much did the Arkansas game and seeing that type of length and athleticism motivate you to schedule SEC teams potentially as a simulation for the tournament, in March?
Yeah, that's a good point, John. We don't see that type of length in the Big East. Uh, we have great guard play in the Big East. We have thick players,
Yep.
and that are real physical, but not that type of athleticism and length that you see in the SEC. So I wanted to gauge. We have good length. We don't have great size, but we have good length, good athleticism, and I want to see how we stack up against Alabama because two similar styles of play.
Yep.
Two teams that want to get up and down and play like a ping pong game.
Now, I don't want to compare this roster to the 96 Kentucky team, but you've been coaching a long time. With the exception of the 96 Kentucky team, where does the roster you have right now stack up against the most talented rosters that you've ever had as a college coach?
Well, it was interesting. I said yesterday at Media Day in a scrimmage, I said, this is the finest collection of athletes I've coached, but they left out as people.
Yeah.
I meant as people, the type of individuals they are.
Yeah.
In terms of talent, and you just never know. If you take the talent on this team and you match it with last year's team, it's pretty similar,
Yeah.
except we're a little bit better offensively. If we can be as good defensively as last year's team, where we were 1 or 1A with Houston, then we've got something special. But that's a big if. So obviously, we're not as good as the '96 team, but in '97 or 2013, look, there are a lot of players on this basketball team because of their experience. They can match up with any team I've coached, with the exception of the '96 team, because you have Sellers from Stanford, who's a great shooter, as good a shooter as there is in the country.
Hmm.
You have Bryce Hopkins, an ex first team All Big East player at Providence. Zuby's a last year first team All Big East player.
Hmm.
One of my favorite players on the team is Dylan Mitchell, a 6'7.5", 6'8" power forward, who's a great defensive player. He's a great slasher, great athlete. And then you have a bench yesterday that beat the first team
Hmm.
at the buzzers. So we're a very deep basketball team. So I like it a lot. I think the chemistry is great. I think the athleticism is there. I don't think we'll have the record that we had last year because of the schedule,
Right.
but I do think we can be as good a basketball team.
How does Rick Pitino make a potentially great offensive team into an elite defensive team?
Well, it's a lot easier to do
Mhm.
that than the opposite,
Right.
because if you have shooting liabilities or shooting deficiencies, it's really, really difficult to make Kadari or RJ, both great players, into great shooters, great 3-point shooting, because unfortunately, or fortunately, uh, I've had teams that lived off the 3-point shot, and
Yep.
last year we could not do that. So this year we'll do it, and I think we will do it um, off the bench as well as starting. Sellers can really shoot it. Um, Zuby is an improved 3-point shooter. Hopkins is an average to good shooter. Dylan Mitchell's probably the only guy who's not a 3-point shooter, but he's a scorer.
You referenced Dylan Mitchell, who again came into his college career with great pedigree, started at Texas, played last year at Cincinnati. You have so many different players who can put the ball in the basket, but he's such a unique talent because he can affect the game sometimes without demanding shots. How important is it to have a player like that when you have a roster full of great offensive talents?
But you think of the front court, you've got Hopkins at the wing at small forward, tough, hard nosed guy. You got Dylan Mitchell, the complete opposite, lightning quick, great vertical, and then you got Zuby, who's the power behind it. So that's a pretty damn good physical front line. Then you have a very deep backcourt, and you also have guys that could swing into the small forward and create more shooting if necessary with Josan Sanan.
Other than Zuby Ejiofor, which of the returning players from last year made the biggest jump?
Ruben Prey, probably. Ruben Prey is a 6'10" basketball player who was very limited last year offensively as well as defensively. And today he can guard 1 through 5. He's a much better scorer. He's a much better athlete. So Ruben is going to probably back up Zuby. He's going to back up at the 4 spot. He's going to play a lot of minutes. Sadiku Ayo is
Mhm.
also somebody who's made a great leap. He's a senior. And, you've got Zuby, a senior. Sellers, a senior. Hopkins, a graduate. Mitchell, a graduate. Sadiku, a senior. That's great front court experience.
Coach, I remember a couple of years ago, prior to injury, Ed Cooley made a statement when he was still the Providence head coach that Bryce Hopkins could wind up being the best player that played for him when he was at Providence. And when you look at the numbers, obviously during his time at Providence, he was getting 16 and 9 every single time he played. From what you've seen so far, what type of an impact could this guy have, now that he's fully healthy?
I think on a given night, he could have a 16 and 9. It's going to be very difficult to do with Zuby and Dylan.
Yeah.
They're going to share the rebounds, but he can be a dominant basketball player, certainly. He's only lacking one thing, and I talked to him about it yesterday. He's not I always talk with the guys about the Mamba mentality of Kobe
Yeah.
Bryant.
Yeah.
And I said, he's got to develop that. He's just such a good guy. He wants to fit in. He's got to get that alpha in him, that killer in him, where if he only has 12 points, he's got to go after 15 rebounds, 5 steals, 2 blocks. He's got to dominate the game, which he's capable of doing, not defer to others because they may be having a good night. And we talked about that, and he said, "You're 100% right, coach." And he has that ability to do that, and he's got to get that alpha in him.
Well, and you could probably say the same thing about Kadari Richmond a year ago, who really blossomed towards the end of last season. I'm curious. I know you only had Kadari Richmond for a year, but how would you compare Ian Jackson now that you've had him for a little bit to Kadari Richmond, in terms of backcourt players?
Totally different. Kadari is a summa cum laude of knowing how to play.
Hmm.
Ian Jackson is just learning how to play.
Hmm.
I say this, Ian is a tremendous young man. He's a sponge. He wants to learn. But Ian, oh, he's a product of a lot of high school Americans. They really have good ability, but they don't understand the fundamentals of the game. They don't understand when to pass, when to shoot. They don't understand when to go 1-on-1 and when to pass. He just has to learn all these things, and he will because he is such a sponge. He has the most growth of anybody in his basketball team, the most potential because he has the most growth. So he just has to learn how to play the game, be a little less careless with the basketball. But I love his potential. Obviously, he's going to play a lot. He's a big part of our offense, and he's going to be a big part of our defense once he learns a lot of things.
Is this the type of team, coach, that you think could average 80, 85 points a game?
Well, we're certainly going to run as if that's our goal. We're very good in the open court. Ian's terrific in the open court. So is Sellers. So is Dylan Mitchell. So is Bryce Hopkins. So is Joe Sansanone, who we haven't talked about, but he's probably the most physically gifted player on the basketball team. He's another one, though, like Ian Jackson. He has to learn the game. He's loaded with talent, but he has to learn when to pass, when to shoot, when to drive, when to pull up. Things I'm surprised that these guys don't already know. It's kind of shocking to me that they don't already know these things. But most of the guys at a very young age get coddled. I'll coddle them a little bit and hammer them a little bit in certain areas.
Well, and this obvious transfer class has, augmented an already burgeoning brand, which you, kind of unlocked last year by having the season that you did. The Saturday before Christmas, you're going to be playing Kentucky and your former captain, Mark Pope, in Atlanta on CBS. What types of emotions? I know you've coached against former assistants and players before, but what types of emotions do you think you're going to have going into that game because it's against your former captain and your former school?
Oh, I think it's no different than coaching against your son, who obviously stirs different emotions. I just think that Kentucky, anytime you play Kentucky, what I've always called the Roman Empire of college basketball, You know you're going to go against great talent.
Mhm.
Certainly, Mark Pope, I think, is one of the bright young coaches in the game. Really has a great offensive mind. But it'll be great to play against University of Kentucky. I'm really looking forward to the game. I went back there a year ago for Big Blue Madness, and that was fun to experience again. So it'll be a great game. I think two teams that'll be highly ranked, two teams that have a lot of talent, different types of talent. Now we're different than them, but it'll be exciting to see who comes out on top.
You mentioned going back to Lexington and obviously getting a round of applause at Rupp Arena. You know, we recently had Pat Kelsey on this show, and he spoke glowingly about you and everything you did at Louisville. Has enough time passed that you would go back to the KFC Yum Center?
Uh, Personally, or as a team to bring my team in there.
Both.
Well, I think I had a lot of problems with the University of Louisville,
Sure.
and there's certain things I will never forgive that they did. But that has nothing to do with the present administration at the University of Louisville because the people that I was upset about are no longer board of trustees, and
Right.
I really wasn't upset that they fired me.
Hmm.
Anybody can be fired. I'm okay with that. It was the treatment they gave Tom Jurich.
Yep.
But just recently, they named the street outside of the practice facility Tom Jurich Way.
Right.
So all is forgiven, all is forgotten. I no longer even think the slightest bit negatively about the University of Louisville, and I would go back in a New York minute. So it's everything's forgiven. That Tom Jurich Way is up there. I really don't care too much about myself. Uh, my staff did some things that I did not appreciate,
Hmm.
and I have no problem with them terminating me uh, at all. So I've got to take responsibility for what happened. But I also take responsibility for 17 unbelievable years, three Final Fours, and a national championship. So great memories, great place, and Pat Kelsey is doing like Mark Pope
Yeah.
an awesome job. Awesome job. I love his enthusiasm. I love what he's all about as a teacher. They've got two great coaches in the state of Kentucky, as good as there is in our game.
And when you were at Louisville, you started in Conference USA, then you went to the Big East, and then you finished in the ACC. You've brought up this point. Mike Krzyzewski's brought up this point, and now that we're in this new era of college sports, everything's being decided with the term Power Four in mind, and that Power Four does not include the Big East. How paramount is it for the future health of the conference to potentially merge with the ACC?
Well, I am in total agreement with Coach K. See, when I started, John, before you were born, 51 years ago, um, so college football and college basketball were on the same plane. The NFL and the NBA were on the same plane.
Yeah.
Today, the NFL is here,
Yeah.
the NBA is here. Not globally, I'm talking about the US.
Yeah.
So, in order for the Big East and the ACC to survive this football mania, because a bad college football game will surpass an NBA playoff game as far as
Right.
viewership is concerned.
Right.
So if we want to survive basketball wise with the ACC and the Big East and so preserve the Dukes, the Carolinas, the Louisvilles of the world, and the Big East, combining it into a mega conference would be an awesome thing. Unfortunately, the outside of Coach K and myself, I don't think there's a lot of feelings that way. I don't think the NCAA is very proactive. I don't think the ACC and the Big East are very proactive. I don't think they think outside the box. So the Big East, I'm in total favor of going to 16, 17 teams yesterday.
Hmm.
I'm in favor of St. Louis. I'm in favor of Dayton. I think everybody needs a partner. We're a partner with Seton Hall. Villanova's a partner with Georgetown. I think Dayton would be a partner with Xavier. We got to get a partner for Creighton. UConn has to have a partner, certainly. So we all need a traveling partner, so to speak. So when you go, you can play two games on the road. And I think having a mega conference in the Big East would only help us. But the presidents look at it totally different. They look at, oh, we have to have a slice of pie now and give the money elsewhere to other schools. I don't look at it that way at all. If you want to make money, in the end, have a bigger conference, and the package will grow bigger and bigger.
Well, and I remember 20 years ago when I started doing this, that's what happened with the old Big East, adding Louisville, Cincinnati, Marquette, and DePaul from Conference USA, and it became the greatest conference really ever assembled in college
Yep.
basketball. But for now, the Big East is the Big East, and the Big East means for you that two of your former pupils are going to face you at least 4 times a year. Kevin Willard, now the head coach at Villanova, and Richard Pitino, now the head coach at Xavier. I know you have coached against these guys before, and I know you've coached against former assistants before. Is it any different with these close relationships once you're in the same conference?
No, not really. I know Kevin's been out. He was my longest running assistant coach of 9 years, both with the. I had my dog barking. Come on, son. Um, I gotta stop a barking. Kevin was the longest running assistant coach for 9 years. He came with me to the Boston Celtics. He's an outstanding coach in Villanova. Uh, did a great thing bringing him back into the Big East because he has Big East experience. My son Richard, it's going to take a while. He even has a tougher building situation than even I had
Yeah.
because he only had one player return who
Yeah.
didn't play.
Yeah.
He didn't have Joel Soriano or some of the other guys I had back. Richard's in a very difficult situation, twofold. One, he didn't have a player back, and two, sort of the NIL in the Big East is there's about 5 schools with a big NIL,
Mm-hmm.
and there's about 6 schools, 2 schools with a medium, and there's like 3 or 4 who don't have a big NIL. And let's face it, if you're in the Euro League where I was, and you're Panathinaikos, Olympiacos, Real Madrid, or Barcelona, you have 25 million to spend on your players. And then if you're from Lithuania or some of the other smaller teams that have a budget of 10 to 12 million, the Olympiacos and the Panathinaikos are going to survive better. That doesn't mean you can't do it on a less of a budget, but it's more difficult, certainly.
Well, those are two of the teams you're going to play in Big East play. And obviously, the games that everybody is going to point to is the matchups against UConn. What do you think those games are going to be like?
Well, UConn's certainly going to have a great team this year from listening to people like yourself who went to watch them practice. They're very strong. They're very hungry, obviously, coming off last year. They're deep. They're talented. They're very well coached. And they have a great following. Connecticut is like the Kentucky of the East. They
Yeah.
have the greatest fan following. Wherever you go, you're going to see a UConn fan. Wherever you go, you in that neck of the woods, in the Mid East, so to speak, you're going to see Kentucky. Those two fan bases travel the best and probably have the most passion in college basketball today.
And one of those games is going to be at Madison Square Garden. There could be a third meeting at Madison Square Garden if you play them in the Big East tournament. How much do you think, as long as St. John's continues to have this type of national gravitas, that you will continue to play more and more games at the Garden? Could we see down the road St. John's play every game at the Garden?
I wouldn't say every game, but I think we're heading that way. I think, it's very difficult. Like Quinnipiac is a very well coached team that picked
Yeah.
in the last couple of years to win the MAC conference. We can't, although we're playing Iona in the Garden, we can't sell out Quinnipiac.
Mm-hmm.
It's although their coaches are great and their team is picked very high each year, we can't sell out. So it's got to be 3 or 4 games a year you have to play at Coneseca. But I can see us playing uh, 12 or 13 games a season at Madison Square Garden.
I remember, Coach, when I was doing a story at SMU on Larry Brown, and he was really had things going in the right direction right there. They were in the top 25, and he wanted a long-term contract, and they wouldn't give him a long-term contract. And at 75, he decided to resign. And I saw him years later throughout the country, and you could see that it was just a major regret because he still loved coaching. For you, as long as you're physically able to do this, could you see yourself stepping away from coaching?
Where was Larry Brown? Where did he step away from?
SMU. This is, 10
SMU.
years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as you hit it, you hit the nail on the head. As long as you are physically and mentally able to do it, there's no reason. Look at Carroll for Las Vegas right now. His enthusiasm, his passion is awesome.
Yep.
As long as you have great passion, Bill Belichick is my age, um, and as long as you have great passion, you love the game, you love coaching. Um, somebody asked me to quit. I get asked this all the time. Would you want to coach anywhere else? Would you want to go back to professional basketball? Um, I would. I love the EuroLeague. I could see myself possibly coaching there again, but I don't see myself coaching anywhere else in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, um, 2 or 3 schools called me to see if I have any interest in moving on, and I said, "No, I really don't have any interest in moving on um, because I'm really enjoying playing at Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
But I don't think I'd want to coach in the NBA ever again. It's too many games. So I think I'm pretty much, if you're healthy, if you're with it, just make it happen. Make it happen. You don't know what's going to happen landscape wise. I wanted to go 3 years at St. John's minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to try and complete my contract. But I got to 3 years in, and let's see what develops with college basketball. How much is it going to change? I don't know right now. They keep talking every year about. I don't think the NIL will ever go away. I don't think what President Trump has done is really going to be of any significance. I don't think they can really control the NIL unless they form a union.
Right.
Because if you're not unionized, there's going to be lawsuits by the players, probably thousands of lawsuits manipulated by the agents.
Yeah.
Because these agents, as you know, John, they're getting paid 10, 12, 15%,
Yeah.
where
Wow.
the pro agent gets paid 2.5, 3%. These guys are taking 10 and 15% of the NIL money, which is kind of incredible.
I remember I interviewed you in 2013 after you won the national title at Louisville, and you told me that your true joy in March was seeing your family and friends at all your games at the Big East tournament and the NCAA tournament, and just smiling and celebrating and going for drinks and dinner. Does having those people around here in New York at the Garden around your games make this job all that much more fulfilling than other jobs you've had?
Well, every job has its pros and cons. Um, it's we were coming in with 5,000 strong at Louisville into the Big East, where we won the last 2 back-to-back championships before they break up. But New York is something special. New York is a different thing, and to bring back the St. John's fans, to bring back um, all the papers talking about St. John's basketball, to bring back the rivalries once again for St. John's,
Yep.
to honor Lou Conaseca, to bring back his memory constantly, it's just a thrill for me. So it keeps you young. It really does keep you young. My son and I, Richard, had a huge discussion the other night. He said, "Why would you ever retire?" And I said, "Well, you get on in age." He said, "Yeah, but what would you do?" He
Yeah.
said, "You suck at golf. You, you. What else would you do?" I said, "I'll go watch you play, Richard, and hopefully see you get to a Final Four." And he said, "No, let's talk seriously." I said, "No," I said, I agree with you. I don't know what else I would do. I think the blessing for me is I was 2 years out of the game,
Yeah.
and boy, did I miss it.
Yeah.
Boy, did I miss it. Like I can't do what Jay Wright does.
Right.
He's just such a together person. He
He is.
really is. He he's just great at so many different things. And you know, if I'm without basketball, I think I would age considerably.
Now, remind me again, I think it was after you lost to Morehead State at Louisville in 2011. weren't you heavily considering a broadcasting opportunity and you were ready to step away and then you decided to reverse course?
I don't remember if that was the case, but I know I did a lot of broadcasting. I did the NBA draft a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've done NCAA games when um, we got knocked out.
Yeah.
But although it's enjoyable, when you're around 13, 14 young players, like I've had the greatest summer
Yeah.
this year I could have, and I've had a couple of personal things that didn't go my way, but professionally, as far as basketball is concerned, it was the best summer I've had in a long time
Mm.
because these athletes, to see the likes of Hopkins and Mitchell and Sellers and even Ian Jackson wanting to learn so much about the game was so refreshing. These guys were absolutely great. Nobody, every single day, I have a freshman on my team, and I haven't had this since probably Terry Rozier, who had the best motor, really outshining Zuby as far as every single day. This young man from Providence, Rhode Island, was the biggest surprise of the summer. And Kelvin was just, he hurt himself in yesterday's scrimmage, but prior to that, he's going to be the leading scorer. Kelvin has such a high motor that it made me think that there are high school basketball players out there worth recruiting.
And that's obviously something to watch moving forward as the landscape continues to shift what feels like daily. All right. I am fascinated by this next thing because in doing this as long as I have coaches always highlight bad and difficult losses so much more than great wins. I know it's hard to ask this to somebody who won a national championship and has been to 7 Final Fours, but give me one memorable win from your career that wasn't in a Final Four, and give me one obviously difficult loss that always seems to creep up, and we'll exclude the 92 regional final with Duke and Kentucky.
Okay, probably a win that sticks out that wasn't a Final Four win would probably be we were down, I think it was with 15:30 to go in the game. I think we were down 32 or 35 points at LSU.
Yes, yes.
And in regulation, we won the game by, I think,
I
5 or
remember that game.
7 points.
Yeah.
To do that on the road is almost an impossible task,
Yeah.
certainly. So I would probably take that game, although there have been a couple last year that were monumental for us because there were games at the buzzer, which were amazing.
Yeah.
But I think that winning at the buzzer is a lot different than coming back from 32 or 35 points. So I would probably take that game. That game, as well as the miracle on Main Street at Louisville, I think we were down 17 with 5 to go um, with two great players at Marquette,
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler
Mhm.
and I forgot the other young man, two longtime pros. And we were down 17 with 5 minutes to go in the game, and they called it the miracle on Main Street. So those two comebacks would stick out. As
And
far
what
as,
yeah.
go ahead, you said the
No,
win now?
no, give me a difficult loss that wasn't in the Final Four, but let's exclude the 92 East Regional Final.
Yeah. Okay. I would probably say what you said, the Morehead State game,
Yeah.
for
Okay.
this reason. Timeout before, I said, guys, we are up 2. I don't care if they tied a ball game. We'll win it in overtime. But whatever you do not let them get a 3 off.
Yeah.
So if we need to go into overtime, so be it. Don't give them a look from the 3-point line. They come down. We're afraid to get beat. We back up. They
Yeah.
pull a 3 at the buzzer. So to me, that sticks out because we had it. We had the plan, and we got beat at the buzzer by a local team.
Yeah.
And for that to happen in the state of Kentucky was very, very difficult. So that's one loss amongst many that I remember. But I can give you about 200 of those.
How often do you think about taking St. John's to the Final Four?
I don't really think too much of that because I know what the Final Four is all about. For the fans, they think it's just about having a great team. Well, there are a lot of great teams that do not make the Final
No
Four
doubt.
because the matchup is not good. Like our matchup with Arkansas was not good. Their length, athleticism really bothered us. Um, but there's certain matchups. I had a Providence team in '87, and Billy Donovan, by the way, is going to be honored with the Naismith
Yep.
Hall of Fame in early September, which I'm very excited about. That team, I could never envision going to a Final Four.
Right.
Still to this day, when I think of the parts of that basketball team, I think that God had his hand on that
Yeah.
basketball team because how they got to a Final Four, I will never know. But they did. And that is a dream come true from I'll never, ever stop dreaming that anything's possible because of that '87 team. So do I think about the Final Four? No. I think about teaching every player to reach his potential,
Hmm.
coaching every player to reach his potential, and getting every team to reach their potential. And if that's good enough to get to an Elite Eight, Final Four, national championship, so be it. So all I'm going to do this year is try to get this team, especially at the defensive end, to reach their potential. And if the matchups are in our favor and we stay away from injuries, then anything's possible. Are we capable of winning a national championship? Certainly we are. We were last year. But let's see if we're good enough come March. That's why I want to know some Alabama game, second game of the season.
Yeah.
I want to see exactly where we are.
We're talking about difficult losses, and Bill Self said this on this show a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was interesting. He said that the hardest game for a coach to lose is in the Elite Eight because it takes away the opportunity to experience the Final Four. I remember in '08 and '09, you had Louisville teams that were Final Four good, but you ran up against North Carolina playing close to home, or you ran up against a Michigan State team that was hot. For a coach, is the most pressure you feel when you're coaching to get to the Final Four in the Elite Eight?
For me, it's always the first game in the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
I never, ever forget Kentucky. We were number one of number one seeds, the '96 team,
Yeah.
playing San Jose State in the first round. We were the largest favorite in modern history at that time. I think we were 35 or 36-point favorite in the game. At halftime, they had this young man who changed his name, Olivia St. Jean,
Yeah.
who
Sure.
changed his name. They were up one, I believe, at halftime.
Oh, wow.
And here we are, the biggest favorite in modern history. And I walked into halftime, believe it or not, very calm. I get very upset at halftime and very spirited when we're
Mhm.
up 12 or up 15 because I think my players going to embrace it. When we're down, I don't get very emotional. Not often. Sometimes I do. But in that game, I just said, we're fine. They are on fire. We're
Yeah.
going to come out and we're going to be fine. Don't panic. Stick to our game plan. We know what to do. And we went out and actually beat the spread in the second half. But that to me, the first round, when you're a heavily ranked basketball team and you're at the first round of the tournament, you've got to get by that game.
Yeah.
For me, it's not the Sweet 16. It's not the Elite Eight on the way to the Final Four. It's that first round game that causes jitters.
And ironically enough, next spring will be the 30-year anniversary of the '96 Kentucky team that won the national title against Syracuse at the Meadowlands. Let's wrap on this. A year ago, you had a great defensive team that got a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. How do you get this rendition of St. John's to a comparable seed in the 2026 NCAA tournament with a chance to advance deep in the bracket?
We got to beat those teams. We have to beat Alabama, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Iowa State, Baylor, and whoever else we face non-conference wise. We can't take too many losses early on. If we do, then 1 or a 2 seed is going to be difficult to get come March. So we've got to win those games, be ready early on. So early practices, which have never been a big deal to me,
Yeah.
we sort of wanted to peak a little bit later on. We've got to peak very early in November. And a great thing I didn't mention, we are playing Michigan
Mm-hmm.
in an exhibition game at Madison Square Garden. And Michigan is probably a top 5, top 10
Yep.
ranked team. You probably know better than me, but
Yeah,
I hear
absolutely.
great things about them. So that's going to tell an awful lot.
And we look forward to covering all of it. Coach, appreciate a couple minutes. Know how busy you are. Have a great rest of the summer. And as always, look forward to staying connected along the way.
Yep, you see how busy I am. I'm a dog sitter. That's how busy I am. See you,
That's
John.
that's St. John's head coach Rick Pitino. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this is Inside College Basketball Now.